Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Myers. I'm from the United States Department of Labor, Office of Apprenticeship. And I thank Pam for this opportunity to come up and speak with you today. I mean, we've been working on this for probably 8 or 9 months until I finally had some travel money to come up this way. This morning we're going to talk basically about apprenticeship here in the United States and in Pennsylvania. I did not have time to make copies of the slides. I was literally finishing the last edit as I was walking out the door Monday. So if you need copies, Pam can get you some afterwards. See if I can work this technology. Oh, we already knew who I am, so.
Kathleen and Sue, can you hear okay?
Yes, perfect,
Okay.
Pam, thank you.
All right.
And I need to welcome you ladies from Du Bois this morning too. Go ahead and enjoy your coffee while you're listening. The National Apprenticeship Act is what officially set up apprenticeship here in the United States. And that was developed back in 1937 with the Fitzgerald Act. Apprenticeship actually dates back in this country to our founding fathers. And these are some of the folks that went on to distinction, national distinction, that were actually apprentices as well. And I'm sure you're familiar with all the names on there. If you have questions along the way, don't hesitate to ask. Basically, registered apprenticeship is a national system that offers on-the-job training in many of today's most sought-after careers through partnerships with businesses like yours and the educational community. Our nationwide network includes approximately 250,000 employers in nearly 1,000 occupations. Now keep in mind, some of those occupations that are on the books are no longer used. I can't tell you the last time I had a horseshoe apprenticeship registered, but it is on the books. Over the past 75 years, apprenticeship has developed millions of apprentices and strengthened America's workforce one program at a time. The National Apprenticeship Registered Apprenticeship System consists of individual companies, both small and large, corporations, associations, labor unions, nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, state apprenticeship agencies, and the U.S. Department of Labor. Let me talk about state apprenticeship agencies for a brief moment here. Excuse me. When the 1937 Fitzgerald Act was signed into law, it gave states two opportunities on how apprenticeship could be managed in the country. One was to let the federal Department of Labor run it for them, or the second opportunity was for the state to actually run it themselves. At that point in time, they were required to set up what was then known as the State Apprenticeship and Training Council. Pennsylvania decided that they would, in fact, be the registration agency. However, they were a little unique in the fact that they did not hire any field reps to meet with employers, educational institutions, to not only develop but to service apprenticeship programs. So the feds said, well, we will fill those slots for you, Pennsylvania. So when I started 14 years ago, there were 10 Federal Department of Labor apprenticeship reps in the state of Pennsylvania. By the end of this year, we will be down to 2. Myself in Reading and one co-worker in Philly. As we retire, the feds are not replacing us, so the state is taking some steps to start training some of their labor law compliance folks to actually do some of this work. Background of apprenticeship in America, we're going to talk some about benefits to employers and job seekers. It is a voluntary training system. It's on-the-job learning complemented by related instruction, bookwork, either correspondence or at a brick-and-mortar educational institution. It's a partnership between employers and employees. It focuses on skill and talent development, and the apprentices are full-time paid employees. There are a lot of frequently asked questions that employers have, so over the next several slides, we're going to talk about some of those. And I'll let you read some of the questions on this slide. There's another slide. I assume you ladies can see this, or are you following along?
They're following along. They have.
Yeah, we're following along. Thank you.
They can see you.
Well, I'm not worried about them seeing me.
Most people want to see the speaker.
Oh, okay.
Rather than the
All right.
presentation, so.
So these are the first part of the frequently asked questions. Okay, what is registered apprenticeship? It's been utilized to meet the needs of America's skilled workforce for over 75 years now. We celebrate our 75th anniversary of the Fitzgerald Act last year. It is a unique, flexible training system that combines job-related technical instruction with structured on-the-job learning experiences. Registered apprenticeship is a leader in preparing American workers to compete in a global 21st century economy that keeps pace with advanced technologies and innovations in training and human resource development. Apprenticeship provides the opportunity for workers to participate in high-skilled, high-paying jobs and for employers to build a qualified workforce. In this regard, the apprenticeship system effectively meets the needs of both employers and workers. It's a highly active in traditional industries such as construction and manufacturing, but is also instrumental in the training and development of emerging industries such as healthcare, energy, and homeland security. Registered apprenticeship is an immediate job. Apprentices start working from day one with an incremental or progressive wage scale as they become more proficient in their chosen trade. Apprenticeships can range from 1 to 6 years depending on the occupation. The majority of them are about 4 years in length though. In 2011, we had more than 130,000 apprentices get registered that year nationwide. On-the-job learning and education is basically the model that apprenticeship follows. It's structured learning with on-the-job training by an assigned mentor. Related instruction, technical education, or other certified training is provided by apprenticeship training centers, technical schools, community colleges, and/or institutions employing distance and computer-based learning. Obviously, we want our workers to have the advanced skill sets that meet the needs of the employer. At the end of the training program that they successfully complete, they're going to receive an industry-issued, nationally recognized certification. Shows occupational proficiency for that particular trade. In many cases, apprenticeship programs provide apprentices with the opportunity to simultaneously obtain secondary, and post-secondary degrees. Again, in 2011, we had over 55,000 apprentices successfully complete their training program. Here are some of the advantages for apprentices in registered apprenticeship, improved skills and competencies, wage increases, on-the-job training and occupation-focused related instruction, and career advancement. Some of my larger employers in the state that I've dealt with over the years, actually individuals that have gone through their apprenticeship are now company presidents, vice presidents, etc. They have actually worked their way up the career ladder. Again, for apprentices, they're going to get a nationally recognized credential, on-the-job learning on current technology and equipment under, the guidance of qualified mentors. And some of my larger programs actually have articulation agreements between community colleges where they can come out with an associate's degree, once they also take the general ed requirements. Now, these are some of the benefits for the employers. We customize that training to meet your specific needs. It's going to be increased productivity and knowledge transfer from your mentor to your apprentice. And let's face it, here in Pennsylvania, we have an aging workforce. And if companies don't get the replacements well trained before those individuals walk out the door, that knowledge is lost forever. Enhanced retention. Again, they're citing 2011, 87% of new journey persons were still employed 9 months after completing their apprenticeship. And there's a big emphasis on safety in the apprenticeship program, which may reduce worker compensation costs. Some additional employer benefits is you have a stable and predictable pipeline for development of qualified workers, recognition of your training program, and it's a systematic approach to training that ensures all employees are trained and certified to produce the highest skill sets. It's been my experience in some manufacturing settings where the employer may say, well, I'm going to send this group of people to classroom A for this course, and then they'll send them over here for another course, and they might spend a lot of training dollars on several courses. There's really no rhyme or reason, and at the end of the day, it wasn't really structured, and they may have ended up wasting a lot of their training dollars. Again, a proven training model that allows employers to set the benchmark and the structure that can determine your return on investment in your training dollars. And again, building a registered program with your business for you and your has many advantages for you and your employees. Investing in registered apprenticeship means a commitment to the future success of your organization. And here are some benefits for your bottom line. Registered apprenticeship programs aid in recruiting new personnel and often support the activity of your HR departments. Investing in the future of your employees can strengthen their loyalty to your company. Teaching new skills and providing incremental raises increases productivity, decreases turnover, and saves your company money on training. And the apprenticeship program helps your employees become nationally certified. This is a business-driven, customizable program. I will work with you to create a flexible training program for your business based on your specific needs. There may be some financial incentives. You may qualify for state tax benefits. Now, currently in Pennsylvania, I'm not aware of any state tax benefits for registered apprenticeship sponsors. But a lot of times they are able to work with the workforce investment boards to obtain grant dollars and things of that nature in some cases. And you have a network across the nation. How is an apprenticeship program started? If we do not have a bargaining agreement or a labor agreement in place, basically, the employer would determine the knowledge and skills needed for the occupation, and I would assist you in that way by providing you some samples that other programs may have used, you know, for a machinist or a tool and die maker, etc. You're going to appoint an apprenticeship supervisor to maintain the standards of training, and the basic details of the program will be written up as a set of apprenticeship standards. And I'll be there with you every step of the way in the development. If there is a labor agreement, then you need to set up a joint apprenticeship committee with equal representation from both labor and management. The committee will arrange for the necessary related classroom instruction. Committee also will agree on the set of standards for the training, which would include the occupations, the length of training, etc. I think we've kind of already answered this question because I have indicated that I am available to provide technical assistance every step of the way along this process. As a matter of fact, it even mentions me here as helping you out, so. Now, there are community colleges and private colleges that will work with you as well that have experience in apprenticeship. Now, I realize up in this neck of the woods, we may not have a lot of brick and mortar type educational institutions. So there are some online things we could do, like Tooling University, Penn Foster, which is a correspondence type setup, which a lot of my employers up here use. But we'll work all that out together. These are some of the partners in registered apprenticeship. Now you may say, why is the U.S. military up there? Well, actually, the U.S. military has 40,000 registered apprentices with us. Because, believe it or not, the military has a lot of the same jobs that we do on the outside. I mean, they need plumbers, electricians, machinists, etc.
The other one is, I don't know if you cover it, the McKean SCI. They have like 14 registered apprenticeships, the federal prison.
Oh, yeah.
The state.
Yeah,
Federal correctional
some of our state and federal correctional institutions do have apprenticeship programs inside of them. A lot of them were developed many years ago.
Oh, okay.
And quite frankly, I've been revising a lot of those as we go because there's just no way for an individual that's incarcerated to get a very good hands-on training as a plumber or electrician because there's only so many toilets you can change, only so many lights that you can change. So we're trying to go with more things like a building maintenance and repair, which is a 2-year program where, you know, they could do a little bit of carpentry, a little bit of electrical, etc. Maybe even throw a little bit of landscaping in there. So as I'm meeting with these prisons, I'm trying to revise those. Because what we found is when an incarcerated person leaves there with this diploma or this certification, they try and get a job, well, their skills aren't really matching up because they didn't have the opportunity for all the hands-on experience. So,
Makes sense.
so we're not really doing them any favors with that. But yes, McKean does have several. I have not visited with them yet. Who operates the registered apprenticeship programs? That's employers, employer associations, labor management organizations, and they vary from small, privately owned to national employer and industry associations. Today we have nearly, and that's actually over 32,000 sponsors I believe now, more than 250,000 employers in the country. And if you're familiar with, in the building trades, for example, the Associated Builders and Contractors, they are the actual sponsor of an apprenticeship program, but they might have 40 employers within that group. And that would be the same with your labor unions for the building trades. These are some of the benefits to states, regions, and communities. And if you pay close attention to that last line, it's estimated that every federal dollar spent on apprenticeship yields more than $50 in revenue for your local, state, and regional economies. Now, there's a lot of information on this slide, so I had to make it a little bit smaller. But this talks about the link between apprenticeship and the workforce development system. In recent years, there have been some training and employment guidance letters that have come out down to the workforce boards to develop strategies to better work with registered apprenticeship and marry us up, so to speak. And so we're in the process of doing that.
Are you working with labor and industry though?
No.
Or just each local WIB?
Each local WIB typically.
Yeah, because we were really surprised L&I doesn't have, they have very little knowledge of the Office of Registered Apprentice.
That's correct.
We were very surprised.
Well, that is what it is.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Unfortunately, but
Yeah.
we're working to try and improve that.
Just write it into the act.
What's that?
It should be part of,
It should just be part of the act.
yeah.
I mean, it's.
We,
something like that.
My regional director is working diligently to get the state more involved because they own the system.
Well, they have to, yeah,
And they're gonna have-
they have to want it. It's
Right.
on their part too.
And they're going to have to do a lot of the legwork.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, hopefully that'll change. But that's good. I mean, local WIBs is where it can happen, but it would
Well,
help us.
yeah, but it would make it easier for me though,
Yeah,
if the state labor and industry folks were involved with registered apprenticeship and they worked hand in hand with the state WIB,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
information flows downhill, as we know, a lot better than trying to knock on doors at each and every WIB. I just don't have the resources to get around to each. I mean, I've talked to most of them over the years, but
Yeah, that would be, with two of you covering the state,
Exactly.
definitely a
So-
challenge.
I mean, we invited some of the state folks up to this meeting today so they could, it would be a learning session for them.
That would have been great. Huh.
How many occupations are available in registered apprenticeship? Like I talked about earlier, there are over 1,000 of them on the books. Now, keep in mind, a lot of those are very, very, very old, and we don't use them anymore. But some of our newer ones, for example, a mechatronics technician. How many know what a mechatronics technician is?
Enough to be dangerous.
Okay. I registered the first program in the state with Phoenix Contact down in Harrisburg. I'm working with Mars Chocolate in Elizabethtown to develop the second mechatronics technician program. Scott Shealy, the executive director of the Lancaster WIB, is hosting a meeting in State College in August.
We just got that yesterday.
Okay. Our national director, Mr. John Ladd, is coming up from DC to attend that meeting. I will be there myself. And that's in an effort to to focus on the industrial maintenance across the state and the needs.
And employers will be welcome to attend. I'll send out the information we just got, so if there's an interest. We talked about it in our last meeting too.
Good.
so.
How long are apprenticeship programs? Again, the normal training program is 4 years in length.
Do you ever have anybody who does an associate's degree and then comes back to get just that industry certification? Sort of flipping it around?
Yes, that does happen on occasion. Typically, what I see in that would be a graduate of Penn College or Stevens College in Lancaster, maybe with a degree in machine tool technology. Now, that 2-year degree is going to be more than sufficient to cover the related instructional requirements for a 4-year machinist apprenticeship. So in that case, basically, they've already got the related instruction. They just need the practical hands-on experience.
Because if you look at our census data, we have a lot of people who have not completed college. They started.
Mm-hmm.
They have some of those general education credits. They have even some of the technical background. But for whatever reason, and there's a whole lot of reasons, they haven't completed the program. And they can't complete it here because we don't have a community college and we don't have
Right.
those kind of things. So I see a real opportunity kind of turning this around.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something I don't think that we've taken advantage of here, because there's a lot of people who just give up.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Right. So if we could, I mean, I think there's a really unique opportunity to market this to a lot of those adult students who are just out there either underemployed or, looking to get a job or getting an entry level into something, and they can't because they don't have the experience.
Well, and a lot of times, like, for example, I visited with the metal stamping company in Kersey yesterday, and they're in the midst of developing an apprenticeship program. They had one years ago, then they were very active, then things kind of turned down, and we have to regenerate that program. But their individual had already completed the 4-year machinist program. Now they want to add a tool and die. And Mr. Howard Ayers at Penn Foster evaluated the degree that he had gotten from Penn College in machine tool technology, and there were some classes for the tool and die that he was missing. So now it's a determination, does the employee want to take these additional 8 or 10 classes to get that second certification. So they're going to let me know. But my recommendation to them was to call Mr. Ayers and see if this gentleman could in fact test out of some of those courses, if he has a mechanism in place to do that. And that very well may come into play with some of these folks you're speaking of.
So you're saying there is then a mechanism in place so that if someone has accrued, say, 20 college credits in whatever.
Well, it can't be whatever, it has to be specific to that industry.
Right, but 20 credits, let's say it's a mix of, business courses or gen eds or, maybe something related to machining. They didn't quite get a degree, but there would be an opportunity for someone to look through that transcript and do that evaluation and an audit and say, this will transfer in as this will transfer in as this.
Yeah, in the case of Penn Foster, he's capable of doing that. I don't know if they were to use Tooling University, whether they would be capable of doing that or not. But I'm sure that there's some independent contractor or something out there that could probably evaluate that.
So it depends on who's providing that classroom
Right.
training.
That registrar would have to be the one who determines the transfer.
Sure.
I mean, you said there were articulation agreements, so that implies automatically that somebody is willing to take.
Right, and a lot of our articulation agreements actually were developed with Harrisburg Area Community College.
Right, yeah.
A lot of the employer groups in the central part of the state have developed that, where they might finish their 4-year program and come out with 30 or 36 credits. All they need then basically are the Gen Ed courses. Good questions. Now we have 3 different types of apprenticeship, and I was talking to Randy before you all got here. The old time-based occupation requires a minimum of 2,000 hours of on-the-job training for each year of the trade, is still in place. And that also would require a minimum of 144 classroom hours of training for each year of the trade. Now, in recent years, we've come up with the competency-based, which is a very good program. It's an observable, measurable pattern of skills, knowledge, and abilities and behaviors that an individual needs to perform the work of that occupation successfully. They are premised on the attainment of demonstrated, observable, and measurable competencies in lieu of meeting time-based requirements. So basically, an apprentice can actually complete this program a little bit quicker than they would under a normal time if they have the capability to demonstrate the competencies and have them tested and pass the competency levels. They can move along a lot quicker. Well, as a matter of fact, it even talks about that on the last, but the key is they have to have measurable pieces in place to measure those competencies. And the competencies need to be identified and defined through a job task analysis and should directly relate to the job. Of course, the organized learning activities need to be structured and be self-paced with open entry and open exit. And measures or tests of competency attainment should be observable, repeatable, and agreeable to all. And of course, when we develop which I don't have a lot of competency-based, I don't think I've even developed one here in Pennsylvania because they've been a little slow to take this on. But we still have to, even in a competency program, have an outline of hours, maybe from, for example, for this portion, 200 to 400 hours, just to give them some idea. One of the employers I visited with yesterday is I'm working on a competency-based CNA program with them. That's a nursing home up in Lock Haven.
I was going to ask you about healthcare. We did try to get,
Yeah.
There were several healthcare agencies interested, but today just didn't work, so.
Okay. Basically, the Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit, or Susquehanna Intermediate Unit, gotten a grant, an HPOC grant. So they are developing the related instruction on DVD. Again, because of the lack of educational providers, they have hired a nurse educator to actually put the classes on this DVD so that the apprentices can then watch the DVD more than likely at their facility after they get off work. Now, a hybrid, which is something even newer, is basically it's a hybrid of the two types we talked about, the time-based and the competency-based. And again, you're welcome to get copies of these slides when we're done from Pam. And you ladies down the road have copies there already, I see. These are some national apprenticeship statistics. As I mentioned earlier, we have more than 32,000 registered apprenticeship programs, which include more than 250,000 employers and more than 480,000 apprentices. Now, those numbers are all down, obviously, due to the recent economic recessions that we've gone through. Okay, typical active program summary of Pennsylvania. As you can see, we're between 1,000 and 1,200. I'm not sure the exact number. That changes basically day to day. A few years ago, we were over 1,600 programs here in the state, but it seems we sign up a few new ones and lose a few old ones.
Active program indicates there's at least one person as an apprentice at a given employer.
In theory, that's the way it should be. I have some programs that are still in the books that their last apprentice just recently completed. So we'll give them a year or two for things to pick up and hire another apprentice before we remove them from the active roles. I just recently lost 2 plants up in this neck of the woods, Brockway Mold and OI Plant 76. So.
What's the main reason for losing them? Just
They went out of business.
Well, in that case, but I mean, what is the main reason overall? Is it because it becomes a burden to their, in terms of paperwork? It's just they don't, why are they dropping out of the program? That's my question.
The majority, and I mean the vast majority of the ones that I have lost have been because they closed the place. Paperwork burden is not that huge. And some of your larger programs, like I have a union lineman program that has nearly 900 apprentices. Well, now they have an administrative staff of probably 6 or 8 young ladies that do all the paperwork. Obviously, you know, they need that to keep up with that amount of apprentices. And they're from a 10-state region too.
Do you ever have cooperative programs between plants? For example, if there's an industry cluster, for example, powdered metal, can they all be participating in one active program, or do they all have to have individual programs?
Typically, we advise them to go individual programs for continuity's sake. Now, the GKN plants, for example, we have the Emporium plant, and I just got Du Bois signed up last year. Now, they are using the same related instruction outline, but they each have a different trade that they're dealing with too. So, but that keeps continuity where we don't have an employer working here one day and then going to this plant, and it's easy to really lose track of what's happening there.
But as far as like the design of a curriculum, like if we identified, you know, what does the curriculum have to look like for tool and die machinist and die setter in powdered metal? Could we take that to metal dine and metal dine at GKN, and would it be applicable to Alpha Synerd and Horizon Technology, and they would then be able to look at it and say, okay, if this works for metal dine, this is going to work for us?
Oh, sure. And in a lot of cases, one of my educational institutions in Berks County, for example, developed the curriculum that meets the needs of a lot of employers, you know, in that particular occupation. So yes.
What agency in Berks?
It's the Berks Career and Technology Center, low tech there. And they have developed plumbing, electrical, HVAC programs over the years that met the needs of a lot of employers for that one curriculum.
Right. And the employers are generally
well, the employers are part of the advisory committee, so that they advise on the needs of the industry. And we're seeing a lot of our business partnerships across the state actually working on that as well. And that's one big part of this meeting coming up in August, is because of industry partnerships that we're looking to improve on the industrial maintenance and mechatronics training for employers here in Pennsylvania.
So I see this as a voluntary training program. So in your experience, do the students typically pay for the outside instruction training and then get some sort of a reimbursement upon completion, or are the employers funding that?
99% of the time, the employers are funding it.
Okay.
What if the student's eligible for financial aid that can defray some of that cost?
well, then they take advantage of that by all means.
That's one of the things you have to really.
Now, some of my employers might have an agreement with the trainee. You know, we'll pay for this, but then you need to stay working with us for so many years or you pay it back. Or some companies may have an educational tuition program, reimbursement program, where they say, okay, you get an A, we're going to give you 100%, you get a B, we'll give you 90, or whatever the case may be. But you got to keep in mind, in theory, the apprentice is going to be a very young person that doesn't make a lot of money, and for them to put out, you know, $1,500, $2,000, or whatever the cost is, may be not feasible for them.
Do you have estimated cost ranges? For example, a company of this size in this particular area of the state spent this much on an apprentice?
I don't have those figures available.
It would probably vary based on where they were getting their in-class training. So if you're at Penn State getting it versus for a technical institute, you might.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that student is required to still matriculate at that institution, even though he or she is an apprentice, correct?
Right.
So that's where you would find that they could take advantage of the financial aid that he or she would be eligible.
But if it's a non-credit bearing program, then there's really no.
And I've noticed that my community colleges, a lot of them have gotten away from using credit programs for apprenticeship and gone to non-credit or certificate courses.
It's less expensive.
It's less expensive. And they go to like a certificate course.
You also don't have to have, the person providing the instruction doesn't have to have a degree.
Right,
Exactly.
so that's why they can lower the cost for the folks.
Is GKM, are they doing non-credit, because they have a guy setter
They are doing
apprenticeship.
non-credit.
It's non-credit with Penn State, right? And they use Tooling U and Penn Foster.
Right, so they're using a hybrid approach on their related
Okay.
instruction.
But if you did it through HAC, you could do it through credit probably. I mean, it all depends on.
Yeah, you really have to talk to HAC on that, because like I say, they have kind of gotten away from that for these evening classes.
My guess too is that employers might have been saying to have non-credit is quicker. Right, exactly, because once you start dealing with credits, I would imagine the faculty and academic affairs of every institution have to get involved and give their blessing on it, and that's
Right.
where it gets expensive and timely.
Yeah.
But if they're earning an associate degree, they would have to have that credit. I mean, because you've mentioned associate degrees, so, you know, obviously there's back to that hybrid notion, it's probably driven a lot by the employer and by the student.
Exactly.
Because of the community college
Yeah.
involvement. It's cheaper. But that's the beauty of it, the flexibility that you offer is amazing.
Right.
That's,
We adapt and overcome.
yeah. That's called evolution.
Yes. And then you can see that we have, what is that? Probably 250 or so employers in the state that actually have 5 or more apprentices. Now, when they get to that level, then we need to develop an affirmative action plan and selection procedure specific to their apprenticeship program to ensure that, you know, females and minorities are getting an opportunity to at least apply for this program. Now, this is the typical age of our apprentices. We still have the 16 to 22 as our most group, but look how this 35 and over is growing. We were talking about that earlier.
Yep.
And we're seeing more and more of that as more businesses close. And we've got, well, I think a couple of years ago, I actually registered a guy that was in his 60s for an apprenticeship program. So.
And I think, Corinne, maybe you can, from last week's meeting, the people that were at the table and GCAM was part of it, it is the older population that are the apprentices, I believe.
Yeah, if you're gonna promote within, I don't have a whole lot of younger ones, our workforce is aging, so we're
Right.
going to, be that probably well over 35. I guess the constraint on the employer side is our headcount is our headcount, and we can't continue to add, so it's gonna be a huge challenge, because I will lose a lot of my skilled workers in the next 10 years. And if I can't bring them in now to start training them, but unfortunately you can't, so you gotta be creative, so that's why I'm hoping something like this will take off and we can start training the skills we need.
But,
Especially if you could get to that 29 to 30.
but a lot of my employers are doing upskilling with their current workforce and developing these programs to, because of new equipment, new technology that's available in the plants today. And this is an opportunity for them to actually get their employees up to speed on the newer technologies with an apprenticeship program. And that's another reason why our 35 and overs are growing. And most of the companies, like you say, they're gonna hire for an apprentice from within their current workforce initially before they look outside, because like you say, they don't have the dollars to bring on a new employee. I wish I had a magic solution. I could make $1 million or $1 billion to be able to allow you to have new employees to train for the future before your skilled guys walk out the door. I don't have a solution for that.
Steve, on the 16 to 22-year-olds, you probably don't know the answer to this question, but at 16, where would they be an apprentice? Because manufacturing,
It could be
it can't
CNA.
be, so it would be healthcare, right? That's what I was thinking.
Well, we don't really have a lot of CNAs. You might have some youth working on a farm or something
Okay,
somewhere that
Alright.
might be 16. Years ago, there was a big push on with GM on the Auto Yes youth program. I think that's just a numerical category that they
Okay.
have.
all right, yeah.
I don't think I have any apprentices right now that are under 18, to be honest with you.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
What about Future Farmers of America? Do you do apprenticeship programs with them?
I tried to set something up with that group several years ago, and their problem was getting the funding for the education. So we weren't able to work that out.
Dave, this is Kathleen. Can I
Yes,
ask a
Please
question
do. I've been
on,
waiting to hear from you ladies all morning.
I've got a bunch of questions here. But how do the wages fare versus somebody just being an entry-level employee versus somebody going in under a training program? Is there a difference in the entry-level wage?
Well, typically what I see my employers do for an apprenticeship program, they may start their apprentices out at 50% of that journey wage, whatever that might be. And let's just throw out an example of $20 an hour that they would like to see those folks making at the end of 4 years. So they may start them out at 50 or 60 or even 70% of that in some of my manufacturing plants. And then typically every 6 months, they'll give them a 5 or a 10% bump in pay to meet up with the required progressive wage scale. And then when they successfully complete that program at the end of 4 years or however long the term is, then they'll move up to 100% of whatever that journey person wage is at that time.
So that sounds like, I'm sorry, it sounds like a wage that somebody could live on. I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have too many programs, at least in the manufacturing setting, that start their people out at minimum wage. Some of my building trades, the mom and pop contractors, they may start them out at $8 or so an hour, but I don't see that a lot in the manufacturing setting. They may start them out at $9, $10, $11, and depending on the wage, that the skilled workers are making in that plant, they could end up at $22, $23, when they finish, which is a sustainable wage.
are you Are you familiar with the union that has the plumbing and heating training program here in Du Bois?
No, I'm not. What, is that part of Local 510 or?
You know, I didn't think to get in my file cabinet to really look at their number, but we had paid them a visit a couple of years ago. And yeah, there is a training opportunity here in Du Bois. Now, the union trains their own people.
Correct.
They're adamant about it. But I found that it was difficult because people have to work, you know, and they have to have a wage. And I don't think that happened right away for these trainees. But I do know somebody that went through the program and did extremely well and is, you know, working today because of it. So I was just wondering if you had any connection or contacts with them.
I'm not sure if that local would be out of Pittsburgh or Harrisburg. I have the plumbing local union out of Harrisburg in my caseload. And that's the
Okay.
only union plumber that I have. But I know they
Okay.
cover a lot of counties.
The other thing that I learned from them is that, you know, if these folks want to work, most of the jobs are well out of the region. People had to understand that going into the training program.
Right.
In other words, their union person would call the individual and say there's work maybe in Harrisburg, and that's where they would go for that period of time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, recently, the union has kind of, because of the Marcellus shale work, they've kind of, we got approval to target their recruitment to a specific area to try and cut back on their folks having to travel such long distances. And, you know, the union plumber, they're well over $30 when they finish their 5-year training program. Now, that happens to be a 5-year training program for them. And of course, they do a lot of prevailing rate work, which bumps that wage up even higher. Now, we had a question on health care.
Yeah, the wages, when she was asking about, you know, what do the wages look like, and you had mentioned most of your manufacturing programs pay better than minimum to begin with. The CNA program that you referenced down in Brookville, do you have a sense of
They're in
what?
Lock Haven.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Lock Haven. What wages are they looking at?
They're looking at probably, now they still got to work with the union and their company CEO or CFO to get this all finalized. They kind of threw a figure out like $15 at the end of the 1-year training program, which is very good for CNA. Very good.
And how many years did you say it was?
It's a 1-year training program.
And
So,
that's
good questions. There are 22 basic standards of registered apprenticeship, and when I work with a company, I will provide a template of those where it actually defines the on-the-job learning plan. It'll define the curriculum for related instruction, the progressive wage schedule, which is set by the employer. Again, I don't tell them how much to pay other than it has to be above minimum wage. And then we talk about safe equipment and facilities for training, apprentice progress evaluation, qualified mentors and supervisors, and there's no discrimination. Now, registered apprenticeship programs are approved for veterans under the Montgomery GI Bill, when the new post 9/11 GI Bill came out, it initially did not include apprenticeship capabilities for veterans, but that has since changed. Now, you're probably wondering why one of those symbols are larger I happen to be partial to the United States Air Force because I spent 22 years working for that group, and all three of my children have worked for that group. So in this case, I'm prejudiced. Values of the registered apprenticeship in the workforce system: customer focused, accountability of the training, performance-based outcomes, high quality training to industry skills standards, development of a high performance workforce. It's labor market driven to meet the challenging needs and changing needs. Now, here are some common myths that I run into on registered apprenticeship, and we're going to bust every one of them. Myth: only for unionized industries. Not true. I probably have 2 or 3 times the number of non-union apprentice programs than I do union programs. Too much bureaucracy. There may be a lot of bureaucracy behind me, but I don't push that off onto you. I am one of those government folks that are actually here to help you, believe it or not, and be truthful about it. Outdated and outmoded. Not the case. We can customize these programs and we adapt to the changing needs of new equipment. We'll revise programs when they get all the new computer-based machining equipment in. We change. We go with the flow. No future, limited career path. I have a lot of current company owners that started out as an apprentice working for someone else. So, again, we blasted all those myths. These are some of the high growth industries that registered apprenticeship is targeting. We haven't been too successful in a lot of them, but we're still plugging along. When you invest in the training of your employees, they will be more committed to the success of your business. Very true statement. This will help to reduce your turnover, decrease your recruitment costs, and increase productivity. As a registered apprenticeship employer partner, you're responsible for recruiting, leading your apprentices as they learn and complete their certifications, and they're members of your workforce from day one.
I think, in my mind, Corinne, made a point to say that most of your workers are older, and you don't have the younger workers to pull from. But from like an academic or career advisement standpoint, I think if I'm sitting down with someone who's 18, 19, 21, dropped out of college, maybe only accrued a couple credits, if I can say to them, this is an apprenticeship, this is your path, this is your progression, this is not just a job. My ideal side says this is what's going to make them want to grab at it, you know what I mean, even if they're not working there yet. But I just think that the layout of an apprenticeship program should be a recruiting incentive for the company and for the students. I mean, am I not thinking the right way on that, or is that, because we all know what these young kids are like.
Well, but I think it also is a problem in our school.
Yes.
Well,
I
I was just going to say.
I think that's personally, I can speak from my own daughter's experience. If you weren't going to a four-year college, that school would pretty much push you aside.
I was just going to say, our high schools is where we have some link breakage, to be honest with you, from my perspective.
Absolutely.
Of course, they have to report X amount of numbers to the state. How many Sallys and Jims are going to college?
That's right.
Okay, and that's got to be reported to the federal government. and they're not focused on technical knowledge, which the employers need.
Yeah, and technically, if we could just say it's if apprenticeship fell into that post-secondary bucket, I think we could change that. That's the bigger problem. Also, too, I love the fact we report that they go, but nobody talks about how many
I know.
finish.
Exactly.
And that's really the problem, and the debt that they carry when they don't finish is a serious problem.
The dropout rate out of college is a lot worse than it is dropping out of a registered apprenticeship program.
Incredible.
By far.
50,
By far.
almost 50% dropout.
Yeah.
I think a lot of schools are starting to get it. It's just we always hear about the ones that aren't. The career and tech centers are crucial.
Exactly.
We don't have any, we have 3 in our region, but the geographical distance is horrible. But this year, Kane is busing their students for Allegheny, and they haven't for like 10 years.
Yeah, they were right.
Yeah, so some schools are getting it. Brookville, they bus kids to their CTC, but they also offer tons of technical training programs that if they, maybe if they knew more about the way apprenticeships worked, that would be a good connection, because they've had employers in to tour.
And Pam, the school to work program still technically exists, right? I mean, why isn't this a huge part of school to
Yes.
work?
I don't think most schools are doing it.
I can't tell you how many high schools I've talked to.
I mean, they're doing it in some aspect.
But I mean, if we could somehow at least change the mindset that this is post-secondary.
You got to change the culture, the perspective. You
Yeah.
know, this is just as good as a 2-year or a 4-year degree.
I can't tell you how many high schools I've talked to over the years, and I've gotten nowhere, really. And it all comes down to those numbers they have to report. Until we change that mindset,
Yeah.
like you say, get the mindset that, hey, here is an alternative to a 2- and 4-year degree, and you're going to be working all along.
Well,
So,
and we do have kids that go directly into the workforce here. But, you know, I can tell you from personal experience that it's tough for them. It's very tough. And
I know
especially from their guidance counselors, it's pretty tough.
I
Well, my-
actually just recently talked to a mother, and her son just graduated this year, and I believe he was in the co-op program from St. Mary's, working somewhere, and I guess they asked him to sign a contract and stay with that company, and they're sending him to school.
Oh,
That's
And he
great.
started exactly right after he graduated, which was earlier this month.
that's great.
So it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening, but I don't know if it was the
That was
employer that
student-
said something.
Yeah, it was student-driven, trust me.
Yeah.
He was a go-getter.
Yeah.
Student-driven.
Well, they're lined up at the door at my vocational school in Berks County. When those folks graduate from certain programs, the employers are lined up at the door wanting to hire them. Same at Stevens College. I mean, some of these folks are getting job offers before they even finish their 2-year degree. So,
Yeah, and until we have some established apprenticeships, it's hard for us to talk about them. But
Talking about something that is imaginary to them.
Yes.
we're getting
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm getting excited.
I wish I knew about this 4 years ago.
I know, right?
well, if you would have called me, if you'd have called me 4 years ago, you'd have known about it. Or if I'd have called you 4 years ago, right?
Well, and then there are college students who don't have the skills to go in.
No, they
No,
don't.
either,
They
so.
absolutely.
Well, what did we say earlier, Randy? They're still pushing that business admin degree, which
Yeah.
doesn't even get you a handshake out the door, really. Okay, next steps to consider becoming a registered apprenticeship sponsor. You identify the occupation, you develop on-the-job learning outline, identify the related instruction, and then you register the program with the Pennsylvania Apprenticeship and Training Council, all with my assistance, of course, at least for the next 4 years anyway. And this website will take you to more information on the U.S. Department of Labor website, but I can give you just as good assistance with an email or a phone call. And that concludes the presentation. We've had a lot of good questions along the way. Do we have any additional questions?
When you're talking about the competencies, what competency tests do you use? Are there some developed just for those programs, or do you use like the, help me out with the N, it's NOCD? Do they use something more specific?
To be honest with you, the only competency base that I'm in the process of working on is the CNA.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And we borrowed that program from the Good Samaritan Society in the Midwest,
Okay.
who actually developed that competency-based program and used it for their employees.
Okay. But there's no like technical exam that you're using?
No.
Okay. Because, I mean, have you guys looked at work keys, or have you bumped into that?
I know there are some employers that use work keys and what have you.
Because they.
Now, in the metalworking skills, for example, NIMS
Mhm.
has got
Yes.
a lot of competency
Yes.
tests that they use.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, because I'm just thinking, you know, as you're talking about establishing the competencies with the companies and looking at stuff, it's like, WorkKeys has done that. NIBS has done that.
Right.
NOCD has done that.
And if it's there, why
Yeah.
build it again?
Right. Right.
So borrow it.
And the DAT is still being heavily used in manufacturing, isn't it? Differential aptitude testing?
I don't run into that a lot.
No, it was brought up at our meeting last week that it's used.
I think I've had one or two employees share with me that they're still using that test.
Okay.
But
What's it stand for?
Differential aptitudes.
it's various aptitude tests and.
It's very thorough.
It's more
Yeah.
for just positioning, isn't it?
Right.
Where they need to go.
Yeah.
To have the mindset, basically. You mentioned early on in your presentation that you're in secondary and post-secondary degrees.
Well, in some cases, some of our states actually have LPN
Right.
nurse programs set up and RN nurse programs set up as these folks are going through their college and what have you. We don't have that in Pennsylvania, but on a national level, it's there.
Well, the reason that I'm asking the question is because we're seeing an increase, obviously, in high school dropouts. A significant increase.
Mhm.
And it's an odd blip right now. But I'm thinking that a lot of times people can't get jobs because they don't have a high school degree. I would be very curious to pursue that opportunity of looking at an apprenticeship program that couples it with a GED. I think that would be a very interesting.
Most of my employers require a GED
Right,
as
but
a
I'm just
minimum.
curious what programs might be out there that we could create for those employees that can't progress in their job or are prevented from getting into a job because they don't have a GED. And especially here where we're just having a really difficult time delivering those programs.
There are a lot of community organizations that actually work with folks not only to help them get their GED, but English as a second language, some of the soft skills, interviewing skills, things of that nature. Believe it or not, a lot of our young folks lack of even some of the soft skills and their work skills, knowing they have to show up on time, et cetera, et cetera.
That's been a conversation here. Randy's was part of, or we had a consortium of employers, this was before I even was with the web, I think, but develop work readiness skills standards endorsed by employers, specific to North Central and some employers. So it's been going on for a long time.
I'm sure you're aware that Scott Shealy at the Career Link in Lancaster has developed a certificate program that when folks come out of that, that's telling the employers that they are ready to work.
That's what ours was, yeah, we did that as well.
You did that as well?
Yeah.
So.
It was employer driven, definitely. And the full program is workshops in the Curlings, but that's what the Curlings teach, are those soft skills,
Right.
yeah.
So how about you ladies down the road? Any questions?
I'm thinking, are we going to get a list of local employers that are already actively working with apprenticeship programs? Could we?
I can, when I get back to my office, I can provide Pam with a link. I did not, that was on this slideshow, believe it or not, and I deleted it because that website is a mess, to be honest with you. And our programmers in DC obviously have not made that a high priority to correct that. But when you
Sure, because
when you
if
do a
there's,
search, when you
That's
do a
okay.
search
If-
on that program for employers, for say machinists, it may give you employers from the eastern part of the state as well. So that's why I say it's a mess. But I will provide that with Pam, and you can actually go on there and look. It's on the Department of Labor website, the Federal Department of Labor, and you'll click on the sponsors link, and you'll click on the state and the county, and it will tell you what trades are registered there, but the accuracy is not 100%. So I'm sorry, continue with your...
no, that's okay. That would be perfect, Steve. The other question I have is, if we're working with an employer, as a youth counselor, I do set up work experiences, so I do work with employers. Are you the referral, so we would just refer them to you and you would pick up on this?
When you say refer the student to me or the employer?
No, the employer.
Yeah, if the employer's interested in apprenticeship, yes, then you would refer them to me.
Okay,
But ideally, the employer's apprenticeship program is set up before a youth would get referred, correct?
correct.
Not necessarily. I mean, if the youth is referred to an employer, and that employer then has some interest in setting up an apprenticeship program, I'll gladly work with them to set it up.
How long does it typically take? Anywhere from,
If I walk into an employer today after I'd already sent them the paperwork via email a few weeks ago, and I walk in today to meet with them, go over everything, get it signed, it depends on the timing. The council meets the second Thursday of each month in Harrisburg to review new programs and approve them. So typically, if I have that in my hand by mid-month, I enter the data in the database, and then I forward it to my boss, who reviews it, signs off on it, and sends it up to the council, and they distribute it out. So typically, if I had it by the middle of June, for example, it would have met the July meeting.
And that's as long as it's already
That's as long as
on
the
the
employer...
list and.
Right,
so you're just approving the
Completed.
employer sponsor?
right. Now, the Apprenticeship and Training Council, sometimes there are months they don't meet. They've always got to have a quorum, and, you know, vacation months, they may not have a quorum, so they may not have a meeting. I just got an email the other day that the July meeting is already postponed, so. But typically,
Months to two?
yeah,
You have one or two in DuBois.
oh, you got the listing. I
This
see.
is the old one,
Oh,
and that when I didn't distribute it because it's changed, but are they Gasberry, are they doing?
let me get my spectacles here.
Because I think when we sent an email out, Deborah and I had met, and we sent an email out to like all of the existing ones, and I think it was Gasberry, they haven't used it in quite a while, but I think they might be interested in,
These folks here, Key Car.
that's Gasberry now, yeah, Gasberry products.
I think they're probably registered either with my Pittsburgh office, or maybe they're no longer active.
I don't think they're active, but they're still showing up on the list.
Oh, wait, but that was August 2012.
Yeah, this is old, but,
Yeah, but still.
yeah. But I don't think they're using it, but I think they might be interested, so.
What,
They have a new,
where's that city?
Pam,
there we go.
Pam,
Uh-huh.
Yes, I've talked to Tim Schick from Gasberry's, and I do believe they are interested.
Okay.
Tim Schick, that name rings a bell.
Maybe he contacted you. All right.
What's the new name?
Gasberry Products.
Gaspari.
Yeah, Gasbari.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Like Dubois,
Yeah.
Gaspari and Gaspari.
You see why she threw me off there?
Yes.
That's my fault, yeah.
Yeah, I have been in correspondence with him. so-
Okay, good, good.
Okay, but they're still active. Broccoli mold is gone.
Yeah, they're gone. And OI, they're not gone, but they're not active.
Well, their OI plant, 76 is gone.
Oh, that's right.
They're not active as far as
As far-
apprenticeship.
yeah.
18 and 19 is still active.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. Okay, Jackson. It's 18 and 19, yeah.
Steve, I have another question is if, let's say Gasberry was registered with Pittsburgh and they've been inactive, could they swing over and work with you? I mean, do you do that or do they just stay with Pittsburgh and their contact person would be someone else?
I am working with them currently, as it turns out.
Well, using that, I mean, another example would be maybe if you weren't working with them, but they weren't active, they originally, several years ago, were with Pittsburgh, but,
Well, it all depends. See, our staff, my boss has broken up the state in different areas, and depending what territory they would fall into, would be whether it would be with me or with Pittsburgh. Now, Craig Dotson out in Pittsburgh is retiring at the end of the year, so
no
the
replacement.
state's gonna be doing some of that work, but I may be doing some of it as well. I'm not sure how that's all gonna unfold. Worst case scenario, they can always call me,
Okay,
and I can get them the information, get them to where they need to be.
okay, thank you.
I'd rather they call me than not call anyone. Second page. Oh,
That's the, OI, and Rexham Pharmaceuticals, they're gone.
yeah, I'm going to
They're
visit them
still,
after here.
okay, and that's in Brookville.
Yep, yeah, I'm going back up there to visit with those folks.
Do they have all those active?
Well,
Accordingly.
they have them, but,
But not necessarily people in them.
right.
Okay, and that was about it.
So, in your experience, if we were to look at individuals who are not currently working in a company, what are the minimum qualifications aside from a GED? Is that something the employer establishes?
Yes. The only qualification state sets up is they have to be 16 years of age. Well,
Okay,
we know that in most of our clients, they have to be at least 18 for insurance purposes, et cetera. But that's all employer driven as far as what qualifications they want.
sure.
There may be drug tests they have to pass, et cetera.
Right. We have a short-term training program that the Community Ed Council has been running for about a year now, where we put individuals who are seeking entry-level employment through some various screening processes, including they pay for their own drug tests, they get registered with CareerLink, go through the workshops, then they do some technical training with us, using Tooling U, the St. Mary's Area High School facilities, and some classroom theory-based global economics of powdered metal, if you will. And then after that 2-week period, then they go through interviews with companies, and they are just getting scooped up because they've gone through, this whole series of screenings. By the time they get to them, they've gone through at least 2 or 3 rounds of mock interviews. And so, I think that sounds like a great feeder into the apprenticeship program, or maybe, we turn that into a pre-apprenticeship.
I was just
Right.
going to say, there are various areas in the state that have developed a pre-apprenticeship program where they actually teach them all the soft skills, the interviewing skills, and they actually have them kind of shadow
Right, it's just getting their feet wet.
different trades to see what they may have an interest in.
And then that might make employers feel a little more comfortable making that commitment for someone that hasn't worked for them for a long time to sign on to a registered apprenticeship. Maybe when they get interviewed, you know, they.
And we've had success with the one in Berks County, for example. Ruth Matthews there typically, now she works with all the union building trades in her program. And she gets a lot of grant dollars from various places to fund everything. But a lot of her graduates are getting scooped up, so to speak, as soon as they finish the program. Another new program that I'm working to, well, the trade's been around for years, but wastewater treatment plant operator. I know that with Reading, they were cited for their facility and by the EPA, I guess. So there was a committee put together of folks from the water service, the mayor's office, state and federal EPA, and I'm involved with that. So we're trying to develop an apprenticeship there, not only for the wastewater treatment, but for their drinking water treatment facility as well. So I don't know if that's something that, you know, would be a need out in this area.
We have a labor union, we have the UAW at our facility.
Okay.
So we have to have a joint meeting and the whole thing. But I do have one gentleman, we just, for a long time when we had the downturn, apprentices, trainees, all them went out the door and we kept the skilled workers. So we have one person who's entered back into the tool and die ranks in the last 9 months, and we have developed a skilled trades trainee type thing. But what we're missing is the theory-based education. We're doing all on the job, which is fine, but he came from outside of the plant floor with no tool and die background. So the classroom would be really nice. Because he's already in that, if we would go apprenticeship for our skilled trades groups, would his time in there, it's all documented, count towards his apprenticeship, or would he?
Good question, good question. We have the capability to grant 80% credit. For example, for a 4-year machinist program, which is 8,000 hours long, we could actually grant up to 6,400 hours of on-the-job training that they've already successfully completed, and you would approve that for them.
Okay.
To make sure they have those skills.
Their tool shop's pretty structured, and they have levels where they test out, but it's all based on just the supervisor who's developed these tests.
Right.
So I mean, we have it all documented on what he's been doing, but I'm just thinking about, you know, my skilled trades group, I have millwrights, mechanics, electricians, tool and die makers, and I'd like to start something on die setters, because that's gonna be my next one that we're gonna be exiting.
Oh yeah, we just signed that up with the GTN folks.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wear my mind is.
I think that's a 2-year program that I set up over there.
If I can get $300, just my biggest thing.
You see Tulane University?
And again, you know, GTN kind of built that hybrid related instruction piece. Perhaps you could get right in on that.
Oh, you have.
Renee was
We
on
did
the
that.
call, she
Yeah.
kept the meeting going pretty well, having the experience of offering all the apprenticeships, so.
Okay, any other questions?
Do you have any actor apprentices in Pennsylvania right now?
Any who?
Actor apprentices on the list.
No. Like I say, some of those,
Yeah.
they may be on the list, but they're really not.
A bracelet and brooch maker.
Actually, that one could be coming back.
Yes. Pia Wiles.
Yeah, a lot of people are starting to get into making their own jewelry.
Yeah. We actually have, I think a couple could actually use some of that. And she could actually be the supervisor and have a young person come in who wants to learn. I see an opportunity.
But, you know, is there any classroom instruction on jewelry making?
find some online.
There's actually
There you go.
welding and things like that that they have
Yeah.
to do. There is some classroom instruction.
Okay.
I
So-
have, no, you go.
So as you look for the classroom instruction, who says it's okay or not? Like, can I just go on on any website and say, this looks good, I'm gonna take this, or through your office, does it have to be approved?
Well, I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the ones that have been used in the past. So I can tell you right off that they would be approved. Like
Okay.
Tooling U, Penn Foster, the hybrid, Penn State, the non-classroom time. So now if you just go on there and pull something off the web out of
Any
the
old
blue,
PowerPoint or whatever, yeah.
yeah, that probably wouldn't fly.
I'm just like, Tooling U, we had them in, they wanted to, of course, do our whole training program with the whole company, and it was very costly, so we kind of shied away from that, but if you could kind of tailor it down to an apprenticeship
Well,
basis.
yeah, just tell them what you want. Tell them, don't come in here and sell me the whole daggone,
Yeah, I don't want the whole thing,
the whole wagon. I just want part of the wheel.
yeah, because they have some nice programs.
Obviously, they're trying to make money too,
Sure.
so.
The mechatronics. Mechatronics, is it the same as the industrial maintenance?
Mechatronics actually combines, you know, a lot of the PLC stuff, the pneumatics, hydraulics, electrical, IT, mechanical. So it's a combination of several trades there, really.
Because that meeting in August will be very, very interesting. I see something like that in almost any region being something that could go across companies.
Well, and that's what
Not
Scott's hope
PM
is, that
specific, but-
we can get the interest generated across the state, because there is a big need for industrial maintenance here in Pennsylvania. And, you know, we want to do something that the employers are going to need and want to use.
Right. Randy, and as far as industrial maintenance, what's, like, I don't know, I know that's not like
Well, I
10
mean, you know,
positions in
millwrights
our companies,
and maintenance electricians are really in
Maintenance
maintenance.
electricians, welders,
Right.
is that something that you have trouble getting?
well, we haven't up to this point, but you know.
Yeah. Because it
There
came up
again,
at
it's
our
who we
meeting.
have as an aging workforce,
Right.
isn't it, Frank?
It came up at our meeting and a lot of the employers said, or a couple of them, I can't remember exactly, that they don't have trouble filling that position and there's very low turnover. It's just when they are aging out of the workforce. So I just wondered if
Seems to
that
be a
was,
position where you do get qualified people for whatever reason to apply.
and they stay.
Yeah.
Because it's a good department to be in, and I think they would say,
Has Domtar ever contacted anyone? Are they anywhere in the apprenticeship list? Domtar, which is a beaver mill up in Johnsonburg.
they get all our information.
But they've not made any contact with
No.
DOL, they're not on your apprenticeship sheet there?
No.
Because they have, what, over 400 employees in this little town of Johnsonburg, just like
And
9
where's
miles,
Johnsonburg at?
9 miles north of here.
Oh, really?
I mean, they're a huge presence. Paper mill's been here since the late 1800s because of, you know,
Well, I have
location
a
where
few
it is.
paper mills registered. I got the Appleton, which is now something else.
And they're very,
And I
they've
got
been
Gladfelder.
very good about being active in these training discussions. Unfortunately, their HR person, who has been working really closely
Yeah.
with Pam and the CEC on stuff, is leaving the area. They've transferred him down to somewhere else, but
Yeah, their new person,
Is
she's
from Bradford.
active, yeah.
yeah.
She was here the other day.
Okay.
So she got the information, she's just getting her
Oh,
feet
yeah.
wet in the position, but.
Yeah.
That would be a big one. I mean, in my mind, I think, for this area.
Yeah, if they call, by golly, we'll build it.
Well, I'll be sending out the information again. You know, all of them were invited, but I'll send the presentation out and it'll have your contact information. So.
Again, if you want a copy of the slides, I see that Pam has a copy here. She can probably just duplicate that on her fancy Xerox.
I would like one. I might check some right about that.
Oh, yeah, I plan on sending it out and putting it on our website.
Okay.
What always happens is when you have it up on the screen, people, like I did, I looked at my slides because it was up
Well,
there, so that's why
I apologize, like I say, I literally had just finished the last edit when I walked out the door Monday, so I didn't have time to make copies.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously I wanted to get it sent to you because it's a 10 meg file and it took quite a while to go through. So,
Well, thank you very much, we really appreciate it.
well, I'm glad y'all were able to come out and hopefully you walk away with, of course, we got an old apprenticeship guy here. Hopefully you walked away with some knowledge about
This is
the
great.
registered apprenticeship
This is great.
system.
I mean, can you tell we're excited about apprenticeships? And
Well,
we
and
wanna
I'm
help
glad to hear that, I
these
mean, because
families
I've
get
worked with a few of these ladies via phone and email for a year or more. And now, here we are.
yeah, thank you very much.
Well, Pam was on it. She stayed on it, by golly.
Yes, Pam
Well,
is awesome.
It was a committee that helped me stay on it.
Uh,
I was just a lucky one that
There were
said
a lot
that.
of sort of serendipitous things. We heard a wonderful thing on NPR about apprenticeship programs.
Well, we had, who
I forgot
came,
about that.
who was here, at the summit in March
Right,
of
very-
2011, 2012.
Bill Simon.
Bill Simons, he's done a National Pathways to Prosperity report, and I mean, he talks about apprenticeships as just one of the many pathways, so that's kind of,
Well, when Pam first called, I mean, I wanted to jump in my car and come right up
Yeah.
here, but,
Yeah, it just wasn't
uh,
possible.
and who knows, I mean, after this next few months in fiscal, I may not have any more money, so.
We may all be in.
well, and I mean, I think, you know, we've talked about this, but, you know, we see the apprenticeship model as just a really good opportunity, especially for our region. It's a good opportunity for everywhere, but for us, it just seems to fit because of the lack of brick and mortar
Right.
career and tech facilities. Because we do hear from employers, they just want to train their own, you know? I mean, we take them to a certain point in our short-term training program, but, you know, Corinne doesn't want us to teach people really how to, you know, set up a press or anything like that, because theirs are all different.
Right.
So the apprenticeship model just fits all around, and manufacturing is our bread and butter, you know,
Yeah.
in this, you know,
Proprietary.
immediate, like, 3 to 5 county region. And we can't let it go away. And we're losing population. We lost 10% of the population in Cameron, or Elk County, in the last 10 years, 15% in Cameron. We just don't have the people,
Yeah.
because they're dying or because they're going to college and they're not coming back.
So the elk population is growing and the people
Yes,
population is
exactly.
decreasing.
Well, and you have the proprietary nature of the PM industry, which does keep it from collaborating sometimes, at least in the past, it always kept it from collaborating. But we also have some good data that suggests that young people want to come back here, but they have no means to have a sustainable lifestyle here.
Exactly.
And, you know, that is a banner that a lot of organizations are taking up right now, looking at that youth component, so it ties nicely.
And I'll be interested in more information on the CNA to share with our healthcare employees once that's developed. I know there were a couple of hospitals interested in coming and couldn't, so.
Well, they are projecting to have that curriculum on the DVD finished by probably the fall of this year. So hopefully,
So I think it would help the issues with CNA and the turnover, and although our healthcare agencies aren't experiencing as much turnover as they were, I think some are getting more competitive in wages. I know there's one, it's not in Elk County, but they pay almost $12 for their CNAs, so they're starting to see that's what it's gonna take to keep them.
well, believe it or not, that wage has actually come up I was close to registering a CNA program for one of the Country Meadows homes in Allentown several years ago, and the wage was a lot lower than that.
Oh, yeah, a lot of ours are still at 8, 9, but,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna go leave you guys. You can keep the conversation going, I guess. You guys, if you have, Kathleen and, you can't see me. Sue, if you have questions, just go ahead and keep, okay? You
Steve,
done?
just to, very quickly, that CNA program is, skilled nursing facilities do offer that training at no charge. And I believe it's 120 hours of training. When you go in, are you setting up something pretty similar to that, or how do you vary from what's already going on?
This CNA program is actually a competency-based program. Now, that 120 hours is what we term as basic CNA. Then we have advanced CNA training.
Oh, okay.
Then we've got specialties they can go into, such as geriatrics, restorative, dementia. I think that
Oh,
might
that's
be
good.
one more.
Oh, that's
So
great. And then they,
all told, that training is going to run about a year.
about a year.
Right.
Okay. So if they already have a CNA, but they want to go on for the additional education, would they be able to do that?
Yeah,
Let's say they have the basic CNA.
yeah, once we register that facility, then they could give credit for the basic CNA at 120 hours that they've already accumulated.
Have you contacted any of the skilled nursing facilities by any chance?
I have not contacted any in this area. The Lewisburg, Lock Haven area is where this grant is centered right now. So
Okay.
once we get that up and running, it's easier to market a service when there's something already in place that folks can look at and see results.
I think that's great. I do. It's continuing education, and I would think that they would be very interested in it.
So yeah, once we get that up and running, then I want to be able to get the word out across the state that, hey, this is working here, and we think it'll work in your area as well.
You would be letting Pam know that you're ready to go then, so she could let us know?
Exactly.
Wonderful. Great.
Hey, thanks for your time, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks.
Take it easy.
You have one of your cards, I didn't grab one.
Oh, one of my cards?
Yes.
I'll sell you one since you had a chance to get one.